trucking on, and I'm trucking on. Move her on down the line, another town will do me fine. I'm trucking on.
Dan Cook, welcome to Truckin' On.
Hey, Ward.
How are you doing, my friend?
I'm doing better than I should be, for sure.
I'm so glad you're here. I haven't seen you. I mean, we probably crossed paths at a broker event within the last 5 years or 10 years.
Could be.
Who
5
knows?
years would be probably rare because I've been retired 3 years.
Okay.
Now,
So 10 years.
yeah.
And we worked together back in 2008 is when I was there. So 2007 and 8 at Cushman Wakefield. I worked with Mike Wyatt. Rest in peace.
Oh, yeah.
Man, I really wanted Mike to be a guest on the podcast because he was so full of life. And then he tragically died a couple years ago. Was it a year and a half ago? I think.
Something like that.
And I never reached out to him. He was just on my mind. Like, he would be such a great guest, his story and everything. And I had no idea that he had mental health troubles at all.
Yeah,
it was not on my radar.
Yeah.
And that's a big part of my life is mental health type stuff. And it's crazy when someone I was that close with and worked with, I just had no idea that he was struggling. So.
Yeah. I was already retired by then. And so I was not there. My daughter actually was there though. Kelly was still at C&W at the time. And of course I still have a lot of friends there. And so I was, Kelly told me right away when we found out about that. But anyway, that's, when I first saw your first podcast that I watched was Robert Fulford. And Robert's story is so connected to men's mental health.
Yes.
It would have been a great story for Wyatt to connect with. I don't know if they ever connected.
I don't know.
But
Robert is an amazing human being. And I didn't know him really. And I kind of met him. I mean, we crossed paths. I knew who he was, but we never were friends. And he just randomly sent me his book when he wrote it because he listens to the podcast, I think. And he sent me the book. Yeah. And I read it, and then we've become really close friends. He did the podcast, but I mean, we keep in touch on a regular basis. Yeah. And his episode was super powerful for me personally to sit down with him. And anyway, I'm glad and then it reconnected us because you listened to it because you're friends with Robert. And, and when you reached out to me, we're friends on Facebook. So I knew that you had gone through cancer, which we'll get to, but, and I know that you've been in the industrial real estate business as I have for a long time. Yeah. And, when we did work together, but we were talking, we didn't really like work. We didn't know each other that well at Cushman. I mean, I was kind of in my world. I was working with Mike. He was doing office. Yeah. And so I think he brought me on to be like an industrial person on his team. But what really happened is I just was doing office deals and he needed a young broker to do financial analysis for his office deals. And I was like, this is not for me. So I was only there for like 8 months, but it was a really cool experience working with him. I learned a lot. That's for sure.
He had a great recruiting and training. He had a passion for that recruiting and training, and who knows what all he made you do. Oh yeah, to just get the job. But I've heard the stories he would tell, and his people would tell about what he had to do to get a job with Mike.
Yeah, I learned a lot in that short period of time. I'll never forget it. But I also learned I want to be my own broker. I don't want to be working for someone else anymore. Yeah. I mean, at that time I was almost 30 years old and I was just like, I know what I'm doing. I don't want someone telling me what to do. And he was kind of there's no better person to tell you what to do than Mike Wyatt. But if I'm not going to listen to him, then there's not going to be anybody I'm going to listen to. So I just had to go do it on my own.
And you'd already been with Faubert.
I'd been with
and Faubert. Who else? And Mercer?
Mercer.
Yeah.
Yeah, Robert Lynn. When Mercer was at Robert Lynn.
Okay.
So I did Faubert, then I quit the business for 4 years and played in my band. And then I went to Robert Lynn for a year and a half, and Mercer fired me.
Oh, no.
And then Mike Wyatt hired me. And after playing in my band, I'd been an entrepreneur. I mean, I was managing it, booking it, and running tours across the world. And when I like to go back and start working as a junior broker for someone, I just had this like CEO mentality in my mind where and even though I didn't really know what I was doing, I did not like being told what to do either. So and I was not a very good employee.
Makes for a good broker.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the spirit of a good broker is you're take charge kind of guy. And you don't, it's hard to be a support guy when you have those genes in your veins.
Oh man, I had a perfect resume growing up. In high school, I was an overachiever, played sports, went to an Ivy League school, graduated in 4 years. I was like super intern, 3 summers of internships and in my fraternity and all that. And then when I got out of college, my resume went to hell because I like worked for 2 years, quit, played in a band and waited tables, worked for a year, got fired, worked for 8 months. And when I left Cushman, I was really like, my resume is just not a good one now. Like nobody's going to take me seriously. And it was hard. I didn't want to leave for that reason. Like this is just going to look bad that I have another job change and I'm not even 30 years old yet. And I look like a very undependable, unreliable person. And thankfully I just kind of got it together after that.
Did you go to Collier's next?
I went to Transwestern.
Oh, okay.
And I was there for almost 4 years.
All right.
So that was, and then I decided I wanted to go back to a larger shop because I was doing work.
Yeah.
Internationally. And I liked the idea of being back at a Cushman type place in which Collier's is. And we have global presence and I had global clients. I just thought it would be a better fit. So I've been there now 14 years, longest job I've ever had.
Well, you launched and turned it into a huge career. So hats off to you, buddy.
Thank you. I think of you as always being at Cushman Wakefield because that's the only time I know you. I did intern at Cushman as well.
Oh, wow.
1999. So
I would have been.
You were there.
Oh, yeah.
I interned for Jack Fraker.
Oh.
Yeah. And anyway, so I met you then. So you had been there at Cushman your whole career from the time I was in college doing internships through your retirement. So you're known as the industrial, you're part of a group of few people that were industrial real estate brokers through all that period.
Yeah.
Like Tommy Pearson, Chris Teasdale,
who were all in that class together. Yeah.
Yeah.
Jack was in that class too.
Jack Fraker.
It's kind of funny. I think of it as classes because there was a group right before me, and Tommy's in that group that's right before me. But I started at C&W in October of '81, and so there's a group of guys that started before that. That was Tommy Pearson, Gary Lindsay, Gordon Foss. I mean, there's a whole bunch of guys. But then there was this group that started in the early 80s, and I'm in that group, which was Jack Fraker moved over and got into brokerage. He'd been with the railroad, I think, and but anyway, we were peers in that kind of group, and so I really do think of it as classes, and especially after 86, 87, because that was the meltdown in the savings and loan industry and RTC and all that kind of thing. And so there was a big void of people getting into nobody wanted to get into business during that 7-year period. And so, you have this group that survived that. Yeah. And we felt like a class. I did that. And then we, made it through to the other side. So there's a real camaraderie among guys that were in that group. And I'm blessed to have been a part of that, I think. I got it, and we'll get into my career, but so we're already talking about that a little bit. But, Rick Hughes is how I got into industrial real estate. And Rick and I grew up together in Garland.
Okay.
And we knew each other through Boy Scouts, and then went to high school together. And he was the drum major of the band, and I was the president of the class. And we just knew each other. And then we ended up going to A&M together, and not together, but we both went to A&M, and we weren't buds at A&M. But anyway, so it was at our 10-year high school reunion that Rick came up to me and he said, "Hey, I think you'd make a great industrial real estate broker." And I was busy doing something else. We'll talk about that in a minute. And I said, "Well, that's interesting." And I kind of logged it away. And then that was in the summer, maybe in June or July that we had that. Well, by September, I was ready to talk to him. Yeah. And that was 1981. So then he got me there through a little bit of work.
He's still working there.
He is, yeah. And having his biggest year ever.
Is he really?
Yeah, absolutely. He's gotten into the data center
that's
world,
right.
and selling data center land and negotiating data center contracts. And he's just really embraced that. And then, of course, ultimately he became an office broker when he came back from Connecticut or New York. And so he did that, and he still does that too. So he's and he does industrial build-to-suit. It's just, he does the whole craft. Yeah. And he's great at it, and he's loving it. So hats off to you, Ricky.
That's great.
But he is, I owe my career in industrial real estate to Ricky Hughes.
That's great. Okay, so let's go back in time to growing up. And I like to start at age 12, but just wherever, those you first started becoming, making your own decisions in this world. And so you grew up in Garland?
I did. I grew up in Garland, and I'll go to a little bit of background about my mom and dad, because big, huge. And I grew up in a great family. But my dad was a technician at TI, and making, when he started at TI in November of 51, they were only on Lemon Avenue. And when they built the plant in Richardson, and he moved out there with that plant. And my mother was trained as an Army nurse and was a registered nurse. And that's actually how my mom and dad met. She was at nursing school in Fort Worth, and she and her sister, and they met my dad's sister and also Judy's aunt, believe it or not, which was, anyway, that we learned that, Judy and I learned that after quite a while, I think, after we started dating, that was actually, she knew my mom and my aunt. And but anyway, they met while mother was in nursing school, and they're at Harrods Hospital. And anyway, so he ended up working for TI, and they moved to Garland. And I was born 9 months after they moved to Garland.
Yeah.
And they moved into the house that I grew up in first the day before I was born. And I actually just sold that house in November.
Really? They stayed there? the whole time?
No, they didn't. We kept it as a rent house.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But this brings us right up to...
But you stayed in that house through your childhood?
Just till I was 11.
Okay.
Yeah. Through about, when I was 11 and a half, we moved to Bandera.
All right.
And this is kind of the beginning of my 12 to 22 era. But they were very, very involved in Boy Scouts and really involved in it. And so that was became a really big part of my life. I was 11 when we moved to the new house in the northern part of Garland, and anyway, and then got really involved in Boy Scouts when I was 12, and I was I loved it. We had guys all up and down my street that were involved in it, the same troop that I was in, believe it or not, and our troop was in South Garland. I mean, we lived in North Garland, but that was, and so I was, you said overachiever a while ago. I was kind of an overachiever in Boy Scouts.
Yeah.
And advanced through the ranks and was, I earned my Eagle when I was actually awarded in April of 67 when I was 14.
Oh yeah. That's a pretty young Eagle Scout.
Yeah. Yeah. But it was so much fun. And in addition to that, I had leadership positions that I was involved in, and I got involved in a lot of leadership training that was outside of our troop, that was council involved. And I was really solid involved in that all the way up through the summer between my junior and senior year. And I'll talk about that a little bit more in a minute. But so the scouting is huge in my background during that time. And then when I was in 7th grade, Mother really wanted me to be in the band and to play an instrument. That's what my older brother had done, and he excelled at that. And kept that actually as a career the rest of his life. Oh,
really?
Yeah. He had a master's degree from the Manhattan School of Music and timpani performance. And so he was involved with Dallas Symphony. And he wasn't a regular member of the symphony, but he played in the symphony. They would bring him in, and he played in the Fort Worth Symphony, and then he was a school teacher. And so anyway, he did that right up until he died.
Yeah.
He was an orchestra teacher at Liberty Middle School in Richardson when he died.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's what Mother wanted me to be in the band. And so I learned an instrument. I was horrible at it, but I didn't want to do that. What I wanted to do, I wanted to be with my buddies.
Being a Boy Scout?
No, my buddies that I grew up with in school.
Yeah.
Playing football.
Okay.
And in those years when I was 11 and 12, probably really 10 and 11, the Garland Owls won state championship 2 years in a row. 63 and 64. And at that time, Garland was a one high school town.
Yeah.
And so the whole town was all involved in this. And the coaching was pretty extreme. Well, that was the culture that was going on as I was getting into to be 12 years old. And so we were just playing hard football, at recess during school and all that. And those are the guys that I grew up with. And then Mother says, no, you need to be in the band. And it's like, and I flunked band my first semester in the fall of my 7th grade year because I didn't like it. I didn't want to do it. And so she finally said, okay, you can go into athletics. So
yeah.
I joined my buddies and then I played football in the 8th grade and 9th grade. And this is a huge, impactful time in my life because football was different then than it is now. When you played, it was probably different than it is now too.
Yeah.
But it was, your helmet was your weapon.
Oh yeah.
Form tackling and putting the helmet in a guy's chest and grabbing his knees and driving him into the ground.
Pretty much in the 90s. Yeah, we were still doing that.
They hadn't changed yet, and you'll see guys that are my age that have this scar on their nose.
Yeah,
I don't know if you've noticed those before, but
from the helmet is
Barney Giles had one, and I've lots of guys that are my age or in my era had that. Yeah. And what it was our helmets didn't fit. And every time you hit somebody, your helmet would come down and hit you right here in the nose.
Yeah.
And so within about 2 minutes of practice, the blood's running down your face.
Yeah.
And everybody had blood. We were all bleeding. So, and that was kind of celebrated in that culture. The other thing, we didn't take water breaks. They wouldn't let us drink water during practice. Crazy stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I think some of this goes back to Bear Bryant when he was at A&M and the Junction Boys, and that whole culture was just insane. But our ninth grade year, we won city champs at Bussey Junior High in my 8th grade year. And then we came back and we won city champs in my 9th grade year. But we had a tragedy. We had a guy named Dean Bridges and his brother Gene were twins. And Gene was the quarterback and Dean was a center and also a guard. And we had, I think, lost the game. It was in September. And so it was a hard Tuesday practice. And anyway, during that practice, Dean passed out and ultimately died like 3 days later. And anyway, that was
from like dehydration or something.
No, it was we were running goal line defense. They were running goal line defense, and I was actually on offense right across the line from him. And you know how what a goal line looks like. The linemen are just driving out and hitting as hard as they can.
Yeah.
Anyway, he died from ruptured what's that artery that runs along the side of your neck?
Just getting hit.
Yeah, in the top of the head. And so what happened was we were running this play over and over and over again. And every time that shouldn't spend a lot of time on this, but when the offense would score, then they would make the defense get up and run a drill called man in the wheel, and everybody had to take a turn hitting each other, and you defend your anyway. It's violent, brutal, kind of a thing, and that was happening like over, and they do that, and then we get down, we'd run the play again, and we did that maybe 4 or 5 times, and during man in the well, he put his hands over his eyes, said, "Coach, I can't see," and then he collapsed. And that was the last I saw of him.
And you watched that whole thing go down.
Oh, yeah. We were right there. And anyway, so as a team, and we still honor this, we still remember Dean. And they actually gave out an award at the end of that year, the spring of '68, and had the Dean Bridges Award at Bussey Junior High School. And it's for an outstanding student athlete who had great, and Dean was a great student. And anyway, so they honored that. And in 2018, some of us teammates were talking about Dean. And anyway, one of them reached out to the school. I don't know why he did, but he reached out to the school to see, and turned out they're still giving out the Dean Bridges Award at Bussey Junior High.
Really?
50 years later. And so we got the team together we got everybody together, and they, at their ceremony, we made a special presentation. But anyway, close times. So that was obviously huge impact. Two things: the discipline that comes from being an athlete at that time, and the coaches pushing you to do more than you ever thought you could do. That taught a lot of us lessons, and to push through pain, to make yourself do things that you don't want to do, and that kind of discipline has served me for the rest of my life.
Yeah,
and I'm sure you know exactly what I'm talking about as an athlete. But so that was another, and I spent so much time on that because of how important that was in my life.
Yeah, it's just the foundation of your discipline.
Yeah.
And did you play football all through high school?
No.
I bet your mom did not like it when one of your teammates died at practice.
Who nobody did. I mean, it was a bad time. But no, I played my sophomore year in high school, and I was so busy in high school. Well, first of all, I was smaller than a lot of the guys were, and I wasn't as I started, when I was in junior high, but everything changed after that, so I wasn't enjoying it as much. And I went through spring training my sophomore year, but I said, at that time I was the vice president of my class. I was very involved in junior achievement, and Boy Scouts still. Junior leader training had become gotten really involved in. I was just a really busy guy.
Yeah.
And I said, I think I'm good.
Yeah.
And so I didn't come back my junior or senior year, but I continued to be, and this takes me to junior achievement. My girlfriend at the time was involved in junior achievement, and anyway, and it's like, okay, well, I'll go do that, and so it was, junior achievement was really cool back then. It's different now. Back then, they would you would get a group of maybe 20 kids from not just your high school, but it would mix up with other kids in the area. And you form a company, you sell stock,
so like an entrepreneurial type club.
It's totally entrepreneurial. So once a week we'd meet, we manufactured a product, we would sell the product, and we paid salaries, we paid commissions, and we had all the officers involved in a company, and I was the president of my company, and we did well. And we did well the next year, and actually my junior year, we won Company of the Year, and I was recognized. I don't think I got President of the Year that year, but maybe I won a ton of awards in the region.
Yeah.
Through junior achievement, was highly recognized, and but anyway, that was.
Did you get in trouble in high school?
No,
you're a good boy.
I was
Eagle Scout, class president, junior achievement.
And overachiever.
Yeah.
Just always.
Did you ever have like that peer pressure to go out? And I'm sure there was that group of people that were going out and getting in trouble.
There were.
Did you feel that?
I didn't. I was so busy and focused on what I was doing. Those guys, I didn't have time for them.
Yeah.
And it's funny. I've got a friend of mine very close who lived next door to me, and we still play golf once a week right now.
Yeah.
He kind of got into some of that stuff.
Yeah.
Which it seems like almost everybody gets into that.
A lot of people do.
I mean, that's just running around and doing your thing when you're in high school. And
my parents were so strict. Like I would try, but they shut me down.
Yeah.
My mom, she was on top of everything.
Yeah.
But anyway, well, we got to move into your college years. So you went to A&M.
Yeah.
and how that's its own unique experience. What brought you to A&M?
Well,
how was that?
So this actually goes right into scouting, believe it or not, because the summer between my junior and senior year in high school, I was assistant ranger to start with at Camp Wisdom. And I had, and actually prior to that, I had been out there for like 3 weeks with a junior leader training program.
Yeah.
It involved. So anyway, I was very involved in that. And there's some great stories that I can't have time to tell you right now. But at the end of that summer camp, when my job was over, I thought I was going to be going back home and trying to figure out something else to do for the rest of the summer. And they invited me and 3 other guys to be involved in a program at Philmont Scout Ranch that would, they were trying to get more inner city kids involved in the program at Philmont. Philmont's a 300,000 acre ranch in New Mexico, Cimarron, New Mexico, right in the edge of the Sangre de Cristo Mountains. And anyway, we were invited to go out there on a work program. And so you'd work for 20 days and then for the ranch. And then the last 10 days, you'd go on a backpacking trip across the ranch. And I'd been backpacking out there before with my scout troop. Anyway, I was real excited to get to go on that deal. And so we were on a fence crew and built fence for the first 20 days, lived in a remote camp. It took 2 hours to get there and by a pickup truck from the headquarters, driving through the mountains. But, and then we were on our backpacking trip, and I sent you the picture. From that adventure, I'm standing on top of the Baldy Mountain, 12,400 and something feet. And big turning point in my life because I had to leave 5 days early. The rest of my team was going to continue on their backpacking trip. And I'm walking back into headquarters early in the morning. It's 5 a.m. I got up, it's pitch dark. And I hiked back into headquarters. And as I'm walking out of the mountains, I'm looking out over the plains that you'd see probably 20, 30 miles. You could see headquarters down below. You could smell they're starting to cook breakfast. I was 5 miles away at that point. But the sun's coming up, and here it is, the summer between my junior and senior year, and you're thinking a lot at that point, what I want to do with the rest of my life, what I want to be. And at least I thought that.
Yeah, you were.
Yeah. And I said, I kind of like this life. This is what I want to be. This is what I want to do. And I made that decision as I'm walking back into headquarters from being on that trip. And anyway, Mom and Dad showed up later that morning, and they took me to Denver. I got on a plane and went to Bloomington, Indiana for the National Junior Achievement Conference. But then time to go to school. Now, back then, this was in 71 when I graduated. You only had 2 choices if you were a guy. You either went to college or you went to Vietnam.
Yeah.
That was it. And I had no question in my mind that I'm going to college. But believe it or not, I had not given it a whole lot of thought which college I'm going to go to.
Yeah.
I really didn't. And so spring of my senior year, Mother says, you really need to think about where you're going to go to school. And I thought, well, I want to do something. Didn't know exactly, but I'm trying to follow my dream, Yeah. Talk about storyboard or whatever, your life, your vision. And I had that vision. And she said, well, I think a lot of your friends are going to A&M. I said, okay, sounds good. And I knew A&M had agricultural classes. And so I said, okay, I'll do that. So I guess we made an application, and I never toured it, never saw it until I went down for orientation that summer. So I'm there for orientation. And back then, man, 16,000 students, 2,000 were women, and none of the women lived on campus. And so when I was dating Judy, I just started dating Judy at that time.
And did you guys go to high school together?
No, I met Judy through junior achievement.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I did. She went to Thomas Jefferson, and I was at Garland, and we were both involved in the regional program that was headquartered in downtown Dallas.
Yeah.
And so we would see each other there. And, but anyway, our first date was March 13th of 71 when I was a senior in high school. And anyway, kind of bouncing around here a little bit, I get there at orientation, and the counselor says, well, you need to pick a major. Really? I got to pick a major right now? He said, well, you either have to pick a major or you're going to be liberal arts undeclared. And I thought, man, I don't want to be anything liberal at all. Mm-hmm. So I said, anyway, he looked at, he said, well, what do you want to do? And I said, I want to work on a big ranch in the mountains, and I want to drive a 4-wheel drive vehicle. I want to check on stuff. That's exactly what I told him. And he said, a ranch. So he opened his catalog to the College of Agriculture, and he's going through the majors, and he gets to range science. He said, that sounds like ranching. And I said, sounds great. So I became a range science major, and my degree was in rangeland management, and I loved it. So that was how I picked my major. And told you A&M has 2,000 women, none of them live on campus, right? And I had a very, very cute girlfriend in Dallas, and she was a year behind me in school. So I went home every weekend to hang out with my girlfriend.
Yeah.
Who Judy
smart
and
man.
Yeah.
And Judy is here right now.
Yeah. So she we got married in 74, in January of 74. We've been married now for 52 years.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So A&M career, I'm getting a degree in agriculture and ranching. And I get a senior year, I get an opportunity to work on a master's degree.
Wait, so through college, you're going home almost every weekend
to see
Judy?
Yeah.
Yeah, so you didn't really have a college life. You just...
Well, yeah.
I mean, you weren't there partying either on the weekends. You were going to be with your girlfriend.
There wasn't... I did not... Yeah, I was. I was going home to be with my girlfriend. And what I did do, and this does fit into the rest of my story, is I did construction.
Okay.
So my summer job became a framer on a huge apartment complex cruise, a company called Dennis James.
Mm-hmm.
And I worked for Dennis James framing contractors for the summers and in Christmas vacation. So my college life was like this. I always had a job. I worked for the Texas Transportation Institute and Vegetation Management Division, and we did research. And so my schedule was I was either in class or I was at work, and I didn't have time to study during the day. So after class, I had to study. And then at noon on Friday, I'm catching a ride back to Dallas. So, and then on Sunday, I'm catching a ride back to A&M. And
what do you mean catching a ride?
Well, I didn't have a car.
So you're just riding with random friend that's going back to Dallas.
I had a roommate who had a car, and he came back to Dallas a lot, but sometimes he didn't. And then I don't know if they still have this, but they had a ride board.
Yeah.
So you could go to one of the buildings and people saying, I'm going to Dallas if you want to ride, and you'd help pay for the gas.
Yeah.
So I've picked up some rides like that, but I'm getting rides back to Dallas. Sometimes I took the bus to get back to College Station because I missed my ride and I had to go.
I did not have a car in college either. So
really?
I took the bus around.
Oh,
I went to school in Providence, Rhode Island.
Yeah.
So, yeah. I remember that.
Anyway.
Buses, trains, bumming rides, borrowing people's cars, all that.
Yeah. All of that. So But anyway, we decided to get married in the summer before my junior year at A&M. And we got engaged actually on her birthday in August that summer. And so then Judy joined me down there. We got an apartment for the spring semester of my junior year. And so that was great. Yeah. And then I wasn't driving back and forth to Dallas. She was with me all the time. And but anyway, so fast forward to my spring of my senior year, and they're offering me opportunity to go to get a master's degree at the University of Nebraska and be in an experiment station in western Nebraska studying sand blue stem. It's like, hey, Judy, this is great. Go back to and anyway, she started crying. She didn't want to live in western Nebraska. I thought, this is close.
I can understand
close to the mountains. This is my mindset. I want to be close to the mountains. And so instead I got a job with the Soil Conservation Service in Pampa, Texas, which is 60 miles northeast of Amarillo. And that wasn't great, but it was still in Texas, 6 hours from Dallas. And well, sure enough, she's not happy with that far away. So the next spring, which would be the spring of 76, I'm trying to figure it out. And what am I going to do?
No kids yet at this point?
Oh, no. Yeah. So trying to figure it out. And so we're on the road coming back from Dallas for Easter vacation.
What do you mean you're trying to figure it out? So you were not happy, would you say?
Well, Judy's not happy living in
Judy was not happy
Pampa,
living
Texas.
In the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
And you were working this job. Were you like loving the job doing this stuff?
It was fun. I drove one of those green pickup trucks, and I'm going out and meeting with the ranchers in Gray County and trying to get them to do.
And Judy during the day is at home, like staying at home and in a small town with like nothing really going
downwind
on.
from the packing plant.
Yeah, downwind from the packing plant. And Pampa, Texas.
Yeah,
I can see that.
In the summer,
you'd get home and Judy's like, this can't continue.
She would never put it to me that way. She just was unhappy.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to protect her and take care of her. And so I'm trying to figure it out. So I had this idea, maybe I can open a backpacking equipment store in Dallas. And so I started doing research on that. And actually we went back home.
Like an REI or something.
Well, yeah, there wasn't, REI was around, but they didn't have stores.
Yeah.
It was all, but, and I'm trying to figure that out. Well,
I love stores like that though. There's that other one that's like at Mockingbird and by SMU kind of, or Mockingbird at McMillan.
Mountain Hideout was the store in Dallas.
Okay.
It was, Jackson
cool.
Willingham.
Those are just good vibing stores. You go in there and I'm not like you. I'm not like as outdoorsy or Boy Scout that you were, but I'll go into one of the stores and want to go buy one of those backpacks and go on a hiking trip. Just they're real good vibing stores.
Well, I did it. I did the backpacking and and I loved it. And so I'm thinking about that. And Judy's dad was very supportive of being an entrepreneur. He was a Dallas fireman and he always had 3 jobs, things that he was doing, but he's always promoting that. And so I came back that Easter and I'm talking to Earl about it. And, what we figured out is you either had to have good credit or cash.
Yeah.
If you're going to get into, or both actually, if you're going to get into this business, you need to do that. And then I realized that Jackson Willingham had already opened Mountain Hideout in Dallas and was pretty much serving that market. So I'm on the way back to Pampa after Easter, and we're out on the highway, and this song comes on the radio. I'm trying to figure out what to do. So it had just been released. And the words of the song go like this. So this is a prayer, actually, in my mind. This song is a prayer, and the words are, so put me on a highway and show me a sign. Take it to the limit one more time. You know that song from the Eagles? Take it to the limit.
Take it to the limit is the song?
Yeah. You don't know the Eagles Take It to the Limit?
I would just have to listen to it.
Oh, my. Wow. I wish I could do justice to play it for you. But anyway, the Eagles Take It to the Limit is an amazing song.
Yeah. And I'm going to listen to it after the podcast.
That came on, and I'm listening to that, and I'm thinking, okay, it's time to do something. I got to do something. The song's telling me to do something. There's also a line in here that says, if it all falls to pieces, would you still be mine? Talking about her.
Yeah.
And that's in that song too. And so I said, I got to do something. So I get back, and I called my major professor at A&M, Dr. Dodd, and I said, hey, I need to see if I can get back closer to Dallas. And I told the SCS I wanted to see if I could move closer to a county, somewhere closer to Dallas.
Yeah.
And anyway, and I didn't think anything would come of either one of those calls real quick. Man, within a day or two, I get a call from this guy, Tom Dismukes, and he works for Valley View Cattle Company. It's owned by a very wealthy family in Dallas. And he said, we're looking for a management trainee, a management guy trainee. And Ed doesn't want somebody who was raised on a ranch. He wants somebody, and this is a huge agribusiness, had 26,000 acres in Athens, Texas, and 10,000 acres in Hugo, Oklahoma, and 26,000 acre irrigated farm in the Panhandle, a big feedlot, huge feedlot in Randall County, and a big agribusiness. And so, man, I'd love it. And the office was in the First National Bank building in downtown Dallas. And I said, yeah, absolutely. I'd love to. So the next day I met with the owner of the company in Amarillo. He just happened to be there. And we talked about it, and he had a passion for wildlife. And he really wanted somebody to help him do his wildlife program. And so sure enough, I don't know, because wildlife wasn't really my thing, but I mentioned something about, I had one wildlife class at A&M. I mentioned something about it, and anyway, he hired me. I went to work for Valley View Cattle Company, and I did wildlife projects and I did special projects, and I was in purchasing and out in Athens, Texas. And I've got great stories we don't have time to tell right now, but I did that for 3 years. And again, we're in Athens. And
you're living in Athens?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. We actually started out, first year lived in Dallas, and then we got pregnant. Judy got pregnant with Daniel, and at that same time they said, by the way, we want you to move to Athens to work because I'm out there all the time anyway. Yeah. And I think they were running out of office space in Dallas. It was growing in the office. And so anyway, we ended up moving to Athens, and where she's pregnant. She can't really get a job. We bought a house out in the country you couldn't see from the road. And anyway, so I'd leave the house before sunup and get home after sundown in the summertime. And she's there by herself. And so over time, that was not a happy experience for her either. And so after I was there for 3 years, we finally decided, I'm giving this up. Small towns don't work for us. And if you're going to be an ag, you got to live in a small town. And so we moved, I resigned, and we moved to Dallas. Actually, we moved to Allen. And I'm trying to find something to do. Well, it's part of my job for Valley View. I because I was in purchasing, I knew the value of all the stuff and or how to get a value for it. And so they bought ranch at that time, and I was tasked with valuing all the personal property on the ranch, fences, structures, the whole thing. And so I put this report together, and I was also in purchasing, and the idea came to me that, if I could just make a commission off of everything that I buy, I could do really well. And also at that time, through Judy's brother, I met a commercial real estate broker, and this is kind of interesting. Everything's kind of fallen together. I'd bought my first house. I saw how real estate brokers made their money.
Yeah.
And I started working on my license. Well, then I resigned. And so my father-in-law is like, you need to get something to do. He owned a sandwich shop and meat market at Preston and Forest. And Bill Minyard cold called him one day at his sandwich shop. And my father-in-law, he said, he was trying to get him to move to a new thing he was building up in Plano. And he said, I'm not interested in that, but my son-in-law needs a job. And so we introduced us to each other. I was already working on my license. So I finished it. Bill said, well, you get your license, I'll hire you. So I worked for Bill Minyard, who was part of the Minyard family.
Yeah.
And Bill had his career. It started through the Hank Dickerson Company. And, but anyway, I was a retail broker for 4 months, and I made 8 leases. Believe it or not. First 4 months. Yeah. And, one of those was Videoland, which was on Preston Road. And I was given a lead, and Bill said, hey, Videoland's looking for expansion. I don't know how he knew that. And he said, go see if you can rustle up some business there. And, he just said, go. And said, okay. And I'm hungry as I can be because I've got one kid already. And so I went over there, and they said, yeah, the owner is this guy named Trevor Glanger. And they had their first store. It was on Preston, right up by Valley View. They said, he's down at Preston Center, and he's looking for a place. I said, well, what does he look like? And so I drove down there, and I started driving around Preston Center looking for this guy. And I saw this guy that looked like, that might be him. So I walked up to him and said, you Trevor? And he said, yeah. And I said, you looking for a place? And he said, yeah. And Bill was crazy. He had keys to all kinds of vacant space. And so he had a key from Samuel Bello for a vacant washateria right there on Preston. And I said, well, come here, let me show you this. So we go over to Preston, and we'll go in there, and I'll show it to him. And it's like 1,200 square feet. He said, well, I love the location, but it's too small. There's a hardware store right next door. So I said, well, hang on, just wait a minute. I walk into the hardware store, make a cold call, and say, hey, just curious if you're interested in expanding or relocating or whatever. And the guy said, oh, yeah, well, we actually are moving. And they were moving, and that was already underway. And I said, oh, that's great. So I went and told Trevor, and I said, well, let's go see Sammy LaBello. So we walk over to Sammy's office right there in Preston Center and meet with him and make a deal.
Yeah.
So I made a Videoland deal right there on Preston. So anyway, I was motivated.
You figured it out pretty quickly.
Boom. But and I'd been handling some major transactions
I think that's huge, it being a real estate broker, to go do something else beforehand,
Yeah.
And like see how another business runs. So you actually get it a little bit more. I think that's probably a good move.
So,
and definitely being married and having a kid, that helps too.
Yeah. Well, that was my first real estate job. But Judy's brother was self-made and had gotten into the oil business. Absolutely self-made. And that oil rigs were hard to come by at that time. They were drilling lots of wells. And he decided to buy a drilling rig. And he approached me. I'd been there 4 months. And he said, hey, I'm buying this drilling rig. Would you run the drilling company for me? I said, Carter, I don't know anything about drilling oil wells. He said, well, everything you need to know is on the other end of that telephone. And I had done big projects for.
How old were you?
Like 28, I guess. And anyway, I was game for it, and it was a salary, and I thought it was exciting. I did it. And I didn't, anyway, that thing, took me away from home. I was working in West Texas and gone all the time. And Judy, we were pregnant with our second child during that time. And anyway, it wasn't a good venture, and it failed. And so end of December or so of 1980, this is when this was, and Clay's due in February. I'm unemployed, and I'm trying to figure out what to do. And so I fall back on my carpentry skills and start, just while I'm looking for a job, I'm also working for a guy that I had worked for shortly when I first moved back to Dallas. And anyway, so, but it comes down to Clay was born, and this is in February, and we are running out of money. In fact, I didn't have any money. I was out. And I'm freaking out.
Yeah.
And this is, I grew up as a Christian, and a very Christian family. But I didn't still really have a relationship with God at that time. But that night, I went out to the front driveway, get away from Judy and Daniel, and I prayed. I just said, I started crying, and I'm praying. And I said, I need some help. I'm failing here, and I don't know what I'm going to do. I had bills due, and anyway, so just you leave it there, and then you go back. Next day you do what you're doing. Next day I go to the mailbox, and I have a check for $7,300 in the mailbox. And it was a commission that I had earned when I was working for Minyard, 15-year lease with Quick Wash. And I was expecting to get a $50 check for 15 years per month for 15 years.
And they paid it all up front.
They cashed it out.
Yeah.
I had no idea they were going to do that. And
the next day.
The next day.
Wow.
The very next day. And so this is a sign, right?
Yeah.
So guess what the sign told me? It said, you need to be a carpenter.
So you need to pray.
Well, yeah. The sign didn't say, you need to get back into real estate.
Yeah.
It didn't tell me that, which was like, wouldn't that have been logical? But no. So I formed Allen Remodeling, and I started doing construction in Allen. And
it takes us some time as human beings to understand the signs from God, I found.
So I took $1,300 of that and paid my bills. And then I put the rest of it away. I knew I was going to have to pay some taxes, so I set aside some money for that. And I started Allen Remodeling, and I was, at the end, the deal was, if I can make $100 a day, I can feed my family, and this will work. And of course, at that point you're in survival mode, and you're just trying to make it happen. But anyway, went through, and in September, I went through the summer, and I had some big jobs, and that was the summer when we had our reunion in '81. And Rick Hughes comes up to me, and he says, "Hey, I think you'd make a great industrial real estate broker." And I hadn't seen Rick since since A&M. And anyway, so I said, "Well, I'm really busy. I was building an office building, taking an old house and turning it into an office building in downtown Allen, and some other stuff that I was working on." And so I said, "Well, I'll keep it in mind." And anyway, September, then I'm working on a little house in kind of Parker, Texas. And anyway, winter's coming. I'm thinking I got to do something different. And so I called Ricky and I said, hey, I'm interested in interviewing. So went down and met with Bob Edge.
Yeah.
And Bob did not want to hire me.
Really?
My hands are like sandpaper, and I hadn't practiced presenting to people in a long, long time.
Yeah.
And I probably didn't present the best. And they're trying to make a choice, So anyway, but eventually Ricky talked him into hiring me. And I came in, I got 2 kids, and I was on draw, I guess, on a small draw. And which is a horrible place to be, because you make your deal and you don't get any money from the deal.
Yeah.
And it goes to pay off the draw, and you eventually, anyway. So I did that. That was started in 81, the October of 81. And so all of 82 and 83, I gave myself 3 years to make it. And in 84, I made, then was they call it the management meeting, which was the awards meeting for the year. And I hit the threshold to make that meeting. And I was probably in the top 10 in Dallas, by doing that. And that was a build-to-suit. Some of those transactions were, one of them was J.G. Boyd. It was an appliance retailer. I cold called them up in Metropolitan, and it was for 80,000 square foot deal, 10-year deal. And
that's a big deal back then.
It was huge. And anyway, I took them up to Langland at Inwood and put them in that building. And but we had a problem, because it was a 10-year deal and I wanted to get cashed out. And the owner said, well, we can't write that off. We have to write it off each year. I said, well, okay. I said, well, if you don't get the revenue, then that's essentially a write-off, right? And he said, well, yeah. It's okay. Well, if you'll give J.G. Boyd 6 months rent abatement, I'll get J.G. Boyd to pay me my fee. And so J.G. Boyd paid me their rent for 6 months, paid C&W the rent for 6 months, and solved the problem. And so I got cashed out on that deal. I thought it was kind of creative.
Isn't it funny, our job as commercial real estate brokers? I mean, even now, it's like wheeling and dealing.
Yeah.
There's no rules. There's always negotiations.
Yeah.
I mean, there's like some pretty good set of standards, but especially when you start working across the country and then other countries, I mean, it's like every deal is just, you're just always trying to figure out, like, who's paying us? How are we getting paid? How much are we getting paid?
Yeah.
And you're like, it's like a whole nother job.
Yeah.
That's good though. That was creative and you got it.
Yeah. And so 84 was a great year for commissions, and 85 was it was not as good, but it wasn't bad. And we started, doing things. But the other thing that happened in 85 was my daughter was born. Judy was pregnant with Kelly. Kelly's, and in January, Judy said, we're going to go to church. We had not been going to church at all for the first 10 years of our marriage. And I guess at that point, almost 11 years. And so we're going to go to church. So she found a little Baptist church in Richardson, and we started going over there. And I'd really not studied, I'd been involved in church my entire life, but not really studying it. And I got into it when I was there and started studying it, and became really a big part of my life. And I believe I was saved, accepted Jesus as my Lord and Savior shortly thereafter, and I started teaching Sunday school and being really involved. But not long after that, 86 came along. 86, 87 was the meltdown of the real estate business completely, because of they changed the rules for writing off real estate investments, And
what were they? Do you remember like the details of that?
Not really.
Yeah.
There's some guys that were intimately involved in it because all of a sudden they had recapture. They had. Well, what happened was the what was impacting us was that the savings and loan rules were so loose that you could say, I'm going to build a project, and you could finance it for 120% of what you thought the project was going to be worth. So day one, you go get your
loan. You don't
loan.
have to have any money. So
no.
You go get 120% of the future value of this property to go build the property.
Yeah. And so these guys were, as fast as they could, we got to get a project together. Yeah. And they're taking cash out.
My dad was developing at Center Development at this point in time. So he was getting to go build office buildings using that.
But mechanism. You know what? Our mutual friend, Greg Spittler, was telling me about this because I mentioned you and he knew your dad really well.
Yeah.
And I guess still knows him.
Yeah, they're still good buddies.
And he said, well, Rob was like a genius because they built the center right there at Midway and LBJ, and he cashed out of that, sold it right before the market crashed.
He did.
And he was a genius. He figured out the values now, let's get it. And he did it.
He wanted to get out. And what really happened was he did that, but then they were like, no, you can't get out. So then there was a lawsuit that happened.
But they sold it though, right?
Yeah, I think they sold it, but there was something about the partnership agreement, like him not being able to get out of the partnership agreement. And that was all going on during that time, which he hit it really well from our family. I was probably 10, 12 years old. I mean, or he thought he did, but I remember him being really stressed out like during that time because it was like, yeah, they sold it, but there was trouble deciding who gets that if he got his money because he was wanted to get out and didn't want to be expanding and building more. So, but it was, I mean, I think that was just a tough time for everyone in the real estate business.
Well, it was horrible, but, and I'll tell you, from 86 or 87 to 94, there was not a spec industrial building built. At all during that time.
So as a broker though, how much does that, I mean, there's less deal flow because there's less buildings getting built, but companies still needed to go rent a warehouse, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, the general economy was not great either.
Yeah.
And so in values, it was, as a tenant rep or corporate rep broker, it was probably better than, but anyway, it was a horrible time and nobody was making money. I wasn't making money in 86 and 87. My dad got cancer.
What do you mean by not making money? Was it just like not making as much as you were, or were there years, I mean, where you're making, like, what is it back then in the 80s? I'm just, I think.
Where I was probably used to making 150 a year.
Yeah.
I might have got down to 40 or 50.
Yeah.
In those really lean years.
Yeah.
It wasn't just me either. At that time, was not partners. Jack Fraker and Todd Platt and I sat office to office right next to each other.
Wow.
And we were all suffering.
Yeah.
Rick Hughes went into management with Cushman Wakefield in New York.
Okay.
And became the director of industrial for the Eastern region for Cushman Wakefield. So he was trying to hire brokers and promoting industrial business with C&W.
That's probably a pretty smart move to go get a management position during that time.
He went and got a salary. Yeah. And the good news for me is he had a base of business here in Dallas, industrial business, that he handed to me and said, would you look after this while I'm gone?
That's great.
And so I picked up, the big customer was Electrocom Automation out in Great Southwest. And they were doing lots of not little, these were 60,000 square foot warehouses that we're doing for mail sorting, manufacturing, mail sorting equipment. And I started doing those. And anyway, we were surviving. But anyway, also during that time, my dad had cancer. He got cancer in the summer of '86. And my focus, in addition to the business being bad, my focus was really on my dad. And I would get to the hospital at 5 a.m. so I could hang out with him a little bit. And he was in the hospital almost the whole time during that 6 months. And but anyway, so I wasn't producing as much for that and the fact that the business was bad, and you really need to be working hard if you were going to survive that. And anyway, this is a great story because it impacted my life in a huge way. But on January 15th of 1987, my dad was back at home. He was at home. We were at hospice. And I had spent the night before at their house on the couch, and my mother had been up with him all night the night before. And early that morning, the hospice nurse arrived. I got up, and Mother went to bed. And but nurse and I were in there. His organs had been shutting down for a couple of days. He was building up fluid on his lungs, and she and I were in there helping him. And we'd laid the bed flat to do change the sheets and set him. And when we set him back up, he's really struggling to breathe. And anyway, he had not probably broken a smile for 6 months. And at that moment, when we set him back up, all of a sudden he looks over his right shoulder and he looks up here and he sees, my vision is he sees somebody, and he had the biggest joy. It was all over his face. And then he turned around and he slumped and he's gone. He died right then. And I believe this is absolutely true, that was the moment that his spirit body went to heaven.
Yeah.
He saw where he was going, and he went, his mortal body died, but his spirit body moved on, and he knew he was going to heaven, and he was so excited.
Yeah.
And that was a huge impact on my life. But anyway, it just strengthened my faith right then. And just a few months after that, I did make a profession of faith again. And it was real because it was tears of gratitude and joy from me when I did that. And so that was just a huge impact on my life at the time. So, what I was going to say was I got baptized again. So I've been baptized 3 times. The first time was so I could take communion when I was 9 years old. And the second time was 85 when I changed churches. They made you be baptized in that church. But then the third time was when I made that final profession of faith. And
do you think that was catalyzed by the witnessing your father?
I think, yeah. I think that had my emotional state was more soft, had been softened, And anyway, so I was ready for that. So here we are back to real estate again, trying to figure out how to make a living. And actually, Jim Vanderslice had to put me back on draw. And that was a huge decision for him to do because everything was bad. And to take on an extra liability but for the company, for me, but he took the chance to save me. And starting about that time, Pep Boys is I had some build-a-suit things come up, and one of them was a Pep Boys 250,000 square foot deal in Mesquite. And Jack Fraker had been pursuing Pep Boys, and I knew that. And I got an inquiry, picked up an inquiry from the Dallas Chamber, and they had some unknown client that was looking for 250,000 square feet. So I just put together a survey of all of that and put a pretty nice survey together and sent it to the chamber. And they sent it on to whoever this client was. And one afternoon, I get a call from this guy, and he's an Italian guy named Joe Sorelli. And he said, "Hey, I'm Joe Sorelli," and I'm paraphrasing. And he said, "We're going to be looking we need a distribution center in Dallas." I said, "Oh, yeah, okay, great." And he said, "I saw your report that you did for the chamber, and I think you can help us." I said, "Yes, sir, absolutely, we can help you." And I said, Who is it? And he says, "Pep Boys." Okay, absolutely, we're on it. And so then I walked down the hall. This is probably 5:30 in the afternoon. I walked down the hall to Jack, and I said, "Jack, I just got a call from Pep Boys." And I told him the story. And so we teamed up on that. And that was a big turning point for both of us, I think, at the time, because we're all starving. And and I wish I could tell you all the stories, but there's some.
Was it a no-brainer to team up with him? Was it one of those?
Oh, not at all. Yeah. I mean, I had a lot of respect for him. That was prior to his investment business that he had crafted while he was there. That hadn't started yet. So anyway, so we teamed up, and he had to bail me out some because for whatever reason, like we were going up there to have a meeting with all the developers. We had them all fly to Pennsylvania to make presentations. I think we had 5 of them that were bidding on it. And the morning of, I lost my ticket, my plane ticket. I lost it. And he had to bail me out and buy my plane ticket for me so I could get on the plane and go. And there were some other things that happened where I was just like, what happened? I was really involved in the details and all of that, but some of this stuff was just really silly stuff that happened that was ridiculous. But anyway, we made the deal, and it helped us. I also made a design build for Porteous Fastener out in Great Southwest that year. So I was kind of getting involved, and this was all coming together in 88 and business was good in 88. And then from then on, and I was doing the electrocom automation business and some of my own business going on up to 94. In 94, our first spec building was built, industrial building, and it was on 360, which is now the Office Depot building there. Mm-hmm. And IDI built that. And it's interesting, they had also put a building on Avenue R under contract, 140,000 square foot building. But Ralph Hines bought that building before I think they actually closed. And then they were building the spec building up on 360. Well, we were representing IDI. And so I was kind of involved in both. That's how I got involved with Fruit of the Earth at that time. And because they moved into the Avenue R building. But we made the deal, and I was partners with Todd Platt and Doug Johnson, and I were representing the IDI building. And anyway, we had various tenants were looking at it. It was the first ESFR building I'd ever seen. You know, it was a lightweight concrete deck that was on that. And anyway, it was a great building, and I loved selling the attributes of that building. Well, anyway, Home Depot comes along, Office Depot comes along, and they only wanted about 2/3 of the building. And Todd said, "No, we're not going to do that. We're going to respond for the whole building." They take the whole building, or, say, "Oh, come on, Todd, they want 2/3." So, no, we're doing the whole building. So he does We go back, they take the whole building. Yeah. Of course, Todd knew what he was doing. And so, oh man, move forward. So that bailed us out, and there's so many more stories. I could just go all afternoon telling you real estate stories, but
then I feel like the mid 90s got there, and then industrial real estate career after you having all that time in it had to have been pretty good, I would like to think.
It got really good, and Todd Platt had developed business with XL, the 3PL, which ultimately now is DHL supply chain. But and so by that time, Todd and Jack were partners in their investment real estate business or practice, brokerage practice. And in '98, Todd went to Hillwood. And so then it was Jack and Randy. And they were busy doing their investment real estate. And so they needed some help. And so they asked me to help with the XL business. And so I got involved and started helping with that. And then when they went to CBRE, they left it with me. So I ended up with, and that was probably 2001, I think, when they went to CBRE. But so that's how I got involved with XL, and became a huge client, XL DHL. For probably 17 years, I was involved in representing them. It's 6 million square feet at Alliance, and alone, not to mention some of the other facilities we had in North Texas. So. And I brought on Mark Becker to help. Actually, David Castro originally started with me to help with that, and then Mark Becker and CL Baskin, who was only there a short period of time, but CL was my business development guy. And anyway.
CL was there when I was there.
He was, yeah.
Because he picked up a giant account, like a DirecTV account, right?
He did. He had the... a best friend relationship with the director of real estate for DirecTV. And
because I remember he started in brokerage and like did a giant office deal in New York City or something.
He did. We did 90,000 square feet at Rockefeller Center.
Yeah.
And I was on that team when that happened, although a small piece.
Yeah.
It was CL mostly, or CL in our New York. Actually, Arthur Morani was our partner on that. Arthur had been the CEO of C&W for almost my whole career, and decided to go back into brokerage, and we brought him in to do that. But anyway, that was great. But anyway, just I used a lot of time, and I don't want to miss this. And I was blessed, obviously, by these relationships over the years.
Yeah.
And, but more and more through that time became more deeply involved in my faith.
Yeah.
And, so, one of the things you bring up is, and I'm stealing your questions. I'm sorry, but what is my charity, I guess, or activity that I would am passionate about, and it's the Mexican Indian Training Center in Cordoba, Mexico, and the men of our church since about '96 have been going down there and doing construction. It is a non-denominational evangelical seminary in Cordoba, Mexico, which is just 90 miles east of Veracruz in the mountains. And I'm actually leaving to go there on Sunday.
Oh, yeah, you were telling me that.
In a few days. But it's great for me because we do construction, and that is, from my past, I love doing construction, framing. And anyway, I think I've probably been there 25, 26 times now since 1999. And, but anyway, that, I haven't even gotten into cancer. I need to tell you about that. But as a part of how my faith has developed, in April of, actually, I was down in Cordoba at MITC in February last year. And I was noticing that it was harder for me, this had been coming up for a while, to get food down. It would get stuck right here in my chest. And so when I got back from Mexico, Judy had me go see the doctor and was quickly diagnosed with esophageal cancer. And so they fast-tracked it. I was on chemo within a month from the first visit. And so I had 4 rounds of chemo. And then I had surgery in July. And they removed about half of my esophagus from about here down. And then they removed most of my stomach and took what was left of my stomach, make a tube, and reconnected it to what was left of my esophagus. So I was expecting a 7 to 10 day stay in the hospital. Prior to when I finished chemo, which was 4 rounds prior to surgery, I was just praying, and I'm 72 years old, and I just said, God, why would you want to add a few more years to my life? And it occurred to me that I needed to be, the reason for me to stay here would to be more bold about my testimony and spreading the gospel. And so as a result of that, I wrote a paper and about my testimony, and I talked about my dad and how I was, became a Christian, and elaborated more on that and what it meant to be a Christian. And I posted it on social media, several sites, and then I printed hard copies of that, and I took them with me to the hospital when I'm checking in for surgery, and I was expecting a 7 to 10 day stay in the hospital. And unfortunately, I had complications. I had a bad infection, and I had a leak where they had made the connection. And I ended up being there for 42 days. And as a result of that, I was able to make some great connections with the care providers in the hospital. And I'll get a copy of it here, but I had printed up hard copies of this story. I call it my story. It's my testimony. And I started handing it out to the care providers and the nurses and the doctors. And so I was able to do that for 6 weeks while I was there. And, I don't know what came of that, but if only one person accepted Jesus as their Lord and Savior through that process, then it was worth it.
Yeah.
And I've continued to do that. So after surgery, then I had 4 more rounds of chemo, and but I wasn't able to eat for 3 months, nothing by mouth for 3 months. And it was October 20th. We were on our way back to the hospital. I had this leak, and they had put a tube on the inside of my esophagus. It was about 6 inches long. It was really painful. And we're on our way back to the hospital, and my doctor, my oncologist, when we first met with him and he told me I had cancer, I think he was surprised because I didn't react with anxiety or fear. I was saved, and I knew that I was going to go to heaven when I died. So I was prepared for that. It was, dying as a rite of passage into God's kingdom. And so he sensed I was a Christian, and he said, I'm a Christian too. And he prayed for me for my healing. So he prayed for my healing, and then he gave me some advice. He said, you need to let go and let God. That was his advice this is before surgery, and it's actually before chemo and everything. Let go and let God. And that gave me comfort all through the lonely nights in the hospital and the pain and procedures. And I went to the OR 9 times through this process. We're on the way to the hospital. I've got this tube in my esophagus. It was painful. It was the worst 2 weeks of the process, really. And there was a chance it was going to be removed. This song comes on the radio. We listened to Christian radio, and it was Gratitude by Brandon Lake. And there's some lines in there that said, I lift up my hands and I praise you again and again. All that I have is a hallelujah. I have nothing to give that's fit for a king, but to give you a hallelujah, a hallelujah. And I heard that. It was like, I got nothing. I can't make deals with God. I can't say, God, let me live longer than 72 years and I'll do this for you, because God owns everything. And and so at that moment I said, okay, I'll let go and I'll let God. And we went back, went in, and I had, thank goodness they took the tube out. I was cleared to eat after 3 months with nothing in my mouth. And the very next day in my Bible study, and I read the Bible. One of my things I do every day is I get up in the morning, I go get my coffee, I sit down and I try to read a chapter a day. And the very next verse that comes up, and I'll read it to you. He says, and this is Paul, the Apostle Paul. And he says, we were under great pressure, far beyond our ability to endure, so that we despaired of life itself. Indeed, we felt we had received the sentence of death. But this happened that we might not rely on ourselves, but on God, who raises the dead. He has delivered us from such a deadly peril, and he will deliver us again. On him we have set our hope, and he will continue to deliver us. That was the very next day. And I have, this disease has a 5-year survival rate of 5%.
Really?
Yeah. So
5% make it past 5 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I won't tell you all the things that I went through in that 6 weeks in the hospital and even after, but
I can't even imagine it.
It was it's interesting too, because I had a lot of strength going through while I was going, really a positive attitude. And I had my moments in the middle of the night a lot that I would pray a lot. And, but I didn't really get emotional about it until now, as I look back on it. And it does make me emotional thinking back on it. But that's it. That's the key. Why do people go through these things? Why did you go through the things that you've gone through? And I know that your faith has been strengthened in the last few years.
Yeah.
And it's so that we will depend on God. That's what he wants. He wants us to depend on him. And So anyway, that's kind of the rest of my story, but
I think there's something to it, like not depending on God because someone tells you to depend on God, but because you learned through living life to depend on God. And that's the answer.
Yeah.
And then I think God will give you keep giving people tests.
Yeah.
Kind of, I say sometimes like it's a tap on the shoulder, and then it might be a smack on the shoulder and then a smack on the back of the head. And sometimes they just keep getting, and then a little harder. And then, but it's just kind of these trials that we go through. I think that's the answer. I've searched every other answer outside of God to help me solve my problems. And for some things that works, but ultimately I've just found that that's the one way.
Yeah.
The one way to be, and then just to live in that way, and remember it, which I pray every day. Like, don't forget to pray every day. Right. And don't take this for granted. Remember how you wound up here. And I think that happens to a lot of us, especially when we're in our 20s or something and other things are very important to us. And you forget about the importance of that until you get reminded. And then some people, I think, figure it out sooner rather than later. Others, like me, like to learn things the hard way. But I like to think that it's like so ingrained in my process of living that I just try to pay attention to it every day. So doing this helps. Hearing your story helps. And I know it. Someone else out there is listening, and everybody's different, and everybody has their different ways of getting there. But anyway, I really appreciate it. And I didn't, the more I do this podcast, the less I ask the questions in the formulaic manner that I once did. And I think, man, you just told me an incredible, inspiring story, and it's so good to reconnect. Get some good real estate history in there and deals getting done. So I really appreciate you coming over here today, my friend.
Well, thank you. Thanks for the opportunity. I really do appreciate it.
Yeah. Is there anything else you want to leave us with?
I
always say, what advice would you give to your younger self?
Yeah. Well, I tell you, I thought about that one a little bit, and I don't know if I've come up with a good answer, but from real estate perspective, I would have done better if I'd have focused more on sales and less on details. Mm-hmm. I really, in my whole career, I get bogged down in details, and I'm very good at it.
Yeah.
Really. But the people that have been the most successful, guys like you, who figured out you need to, spread a wider net and go capture more business and bring in help to take care of the details. And I think that would have been, if I could have figured out how to do that, that would have been good. I'm proud and happy with the career that I had. It brought me to some really special places and wonderful, wonderful partners and people I got to meet. But I thought about that as a possibility. Another question that I thought about was, what's on my bucket list?
Yeah.
And I thought, it changes. Your bucket list changes, and it can change depending on your circumstances. And I'll tell you, in this last year, there were times my bucket list was to be able to sleep in the same bed with my wife, go back home, sleep in the same bed with my wife, and hug my kids and hug my grandkids. That was a bucket list. Thank goodness I got to do all of that.
Yeah.
And I'm looking forward again to being healthy, to learning, being able to eat. Right now, eating is my big challenge.
Yeah.
And I was on a feeding tube for 6.5 months, and I don't have that now. And And so I'm having to really figure out how to get my calories that way. But it's freed me up, and I want to go do more things. So I love playing golf in the mountains. I want to do that. And so I don't know. That's a couple of things that I thought about.
That's awesome, man. Well, thank you, Dan. It was a pleasure, my brother.
All right. Thank you, Ward.
Thanks for trucking on. Peace.